everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Emily, and this is the Astro Library. And May's officially over. Which, I don't know about you, but May was such a long month. Not like a bad month, not like a great month, but just like a long month. Like, it feels like this month took forever, but it's done. Thank God. Which means school's almost done, which means your girl can finally get some sleep. Oh my God, I'm so excited. But it is time for us to do another monthly wrap up to see what the hell did we manage to read in the month of June. And somehow, some way, your girl managed to read 9 books. That's right. She fit in 9 books somehow. I could not tell you what possessed me. I don't know where I found the time. I don't know if this was a bleed over from April, which I also read a lot of books, but your girl read so much. And you know what? Generally, everything was pretty okay. I don't think there was a single DNF this month. All right, so let's go ahead and just dive straight in. So if you're turning this on as you're working, if you're sitting here and enjoying this, hello, welcome in, grab a drink, grab a snack, and let's get into it. We're actually gonna start with all the audiobooks I listened to this month because these are the ones I typically do not own. And it's just easier to get that away so I can put my phone away so I'm not looking at this as I'm trying to talk to you guys. So the first one we are going to talk about is You Deserve to Know by Angie Blum Thompson. Of course, as always, I'll throw it up on screen. This is a domestic thriller in which we are in like this sort of rich neighborhood and we're following 3 wives and their families and how they're all interconnected. And the story essentially follows these women and particularly our main character, Amy. But essentially, they're all pretty close. They go on vacations together, their kids are friends, and they've been friends for like a year or so, ever since Amy moved in. And one day, Amy is like hosting this party, and one of her friend's husbands, I believe it's Gwen's husband, Antonio, comes up and he's drunk and he's kind of like saying something, but he gets Amy alone and he says, "You deserve to know." But before Amy can figure out what it is, Gwen comes in and they end up leaving. And later that night, Amy hears Gwen and Antonio fighting, and the next day Antonio is found dead. And so the whole story is about what happened to Antonio, what sort of secrets are brewing in this neighborhood, and what did Amy deserve to know? It was actually very, very good. I found myself really engaged in the story, and it's something I just kind of picked up on a whim, as I tend to do with audiobooks, and I had a phenomenal time. It was great. I ended up giving this one 3.5 stars. And you might be asking, Emily, if it was great, why did you give it 3.5 stars? My only gripe with this is the ending, in which it tries to do this twist that I think could have been really fun and really interesting if it wasn't for the fact that it feels like it came out of left field. Like they were trying to like do this kooky twist, and I was like, but things were already kind of good. I would have liked to see it a little bit more integrated, but I'm also wondering if I went back and I read this or re-listened to it, if I would catch more of the flags. But from my first experience, it felt like it was just like, and here's this twist that kind of changes everything. But I was like, but why didn't I see that at any point? So that was my gripe with it. I still really, really liked it. I will be picking up more by Aggie Thompson because I really was interested in the story and the writing style, and it was a phenomenal audiobook and it was a phenomenal time. So I'm hoping just I don't get another ending like that. The other audiobook that I read that I do not own is This Is Why We Lied by Karen Slaughter. So this is the latest Will Trent book. I had read the previous Will Trent book, even though I have not read any of the other Will Trent books. And you do not necessarily need to in order to enjoy this story. But I would say if you've watched the TV show and then you started reading the books, you kind of get a little bit more because you know some of the background characters and the background like situations and histories, and that comes in handy, but it is not needed to read this. So in this one, Will and Sarah are on their honeymoon and they go to this camp. It's not a summer camp. It's like a camping lodge. Like people go there, they vacation. There's lodges they can stay at. There's activities and fishing and things they can do. But of course, Will can never catch a break. While he's there, the camp manager ends up being murdered, and Will finds that he cannot let this case go. And what was really interesting about this case and how this book was written is that we get to hear from the murder victim for so much of the book. And I thought that was so cool. It added so much engagement. It really made you feel for this character. Her name's Mercy, and when I tell you, I just wanted to give Mercy a hug so bad because her family sucks. Her family's the worst. But like getting to hear her voice and like getting to like know her backstory and her story, and then to know what happens to her, just stab you in the heart. It was a great book. I loved it so much. The twist, I did guess, but that did not take any of the enjoyment I had for this book out of it. I ended up giving it 4 stars. It's actually kind of made me want to go read the Will Trent series. Your girl might be trying to get her hands on some of those books secondhand. Do I need another really big series to collect? No, I do not. Will I? Probably. The other 2 audiobooks, I do have their physical counterparts, so I will hold those up. The next audiobook I read was Burn Down Master's House by Clay Kane. I'm gonna go out straight up and say this. Do not listen to the audiobook. It's terrible. The audiobook for this is hot garbage. I'm so sorry. It's actually read by the author himself, but his cadence, oh my god. I had to speed this book up to 2.3 speed. And now you're like, Emily, that's not even that fast. I always listen to my audiobooks like this. Okay, some people do. The most I turn up my books is 1.7. Normally, I listen at 1.3 to 1.5. So I had to completely go over that and like to go to 2.3 just to listen to this book and not lose my mind says something. That being said, I really like this book. I ended up giving it 4 stars. Just it lost the star because of the audiobook. But this is a book that is a collection of interconnected stories. It's 4 stories in total, and it's a neo-slave narrative, so we're following characters who either were slaves or are slaves and how they rebel against their masters, and it usually ends in some form of fire. This book was so good, guys. It was so cathartic. It was so great. It reminded me a lot of Blood Slaves, I think it's called. The other one I read in October of last year. And then my complaint with that one is that it was good at showing the horrors of slavery, but a little too teachy. This one, you do not get to shy away from any of the terrible things that happened during slavery, especially to enslaved men and women and children. Oh my god, this book is brutal in that sense. But it's not teachy in the same way that Blood Slaves was. This one will not let you look away, but it's also very cathartic. And some of the lines in this, oh my god, it's so good. I loved it so much. I've actually taken this book and it's now gonna be in one of my dissertation chapters because what Clay Kane was doing in this, the way he talks about diving into the archive, the lines were just so inspiring that it actually kicked me out of a writing rut I was having with my dissertation. She should get a 5-star purely because of that, but that audiobook was terrible. It was so bad. I wish I still had it because I got it from the library to play you a little segment, but he just talks in this like very like start and stop with long pauses in between that. It made it not fun, but I do recommend it. I did really love it. I think it was phenomenal. I think everyone should read this book, especially to not only just like to get like a new refreshing look on slave narratives, which I know can sometimes read a little older and read a little sentimental because of their time, the way that those books had to be published. So this being a new publish, but also like being very reflective, the tradition of slave narratives, I think was just, again, really well done. All right, and the last audiobook I read was, sorry, it's at the bottom of my stack. This is not actually going to help you, but it is, I read another of the Murderbot Diaries. I read System Collapse, which is the 7th book in the series, and it's in the 3rd bind up of these broken binding editions, which are stunning. Oh my god. I can't tell you what's going on in this book, obviously, because it's the 7th book in this series, and that would be a spoiler. But the general premise of Murderbot Diaries is that we have Murderbot, who is a sec unit, which essentially is like this bodyguard security robot. And they work for a company, and they have like a company, like a set of like protocols that they have to do. However, Murderbot has hacked its module and is essentially sentient and has free will and can do whatever it so pleases. And all Murderbot wants to do is to watch telenovela dramas. Literally, that's their only objective. They don't want to talk to no one. It doesn't want to interact with people. It just wants to sit and watch its telenovelas, which honestly is a mood. However, it keeps getting involved with people and getting close to its crewmates and who it's supposed to take care of. And so Murderbot finds himself suddenly having friends. And I am here for this series. It's made up of like novella length novels. I do have like one of the novels here, but it's like all the way on the other side of the room. I'm not gonna go get it, but they're really tiny. I'm talking the audiobooks are like the highest I've ever seen it is like 7 hours. There's one that's actual novel length that kind of is a story that goes on in between a couple of the books, but generally they're really short, really easy to read, and they're always so funny because Murderbot is a hilarious narrator. It just like is quippy. It is having a lot of like silly interactions and just like very relatable thoughts, and I adore it all the time. And I really love when I get a chance to read and listen to these books because they're always just so much fun and they're short and sweet and the perfect thing to get you out of a book slump, which I wasn't necessarily sliding into, but it always is nice and refreshing to get its point of view. This installment I particularly liked because the last one felt a little stagnant and slow, but this one I felt like we really got a chance to see Murderbot in its like perfect element. It was very quippy because we got another character returning as a main character. It was action-packed, it was fun, it was silly. It was actually a little bit of emotional because of like what is going on with Murderbot in this installation. I adored it. I gave it 4 stars. I thought it was amazing. Had so much fun with it. I have actually picked up the next book immediately because then I can cross it off my series list because I will be done and completed with all the books that are published. Go me. That is all the audiobooks. So all we have left are the physical books that I read, and now I can just go down my list. So the next book I have is Passing by Nella Larson. This book I had read for class because we were, like I've told you, I think last month, I am TAing for a Reading for Gender course, and the books we are reading was Little Women, Passing, and then Orlando by Virginia Woolf. We ended up switching Orlando to the films, but Passing is one that we did read, and you can see all my tabs. Now, Passing is a text that I've read many a time before. You've heard me talk about it. I've recommended it to you a couple of times. It's a phenomenal story. It's really short and it's so fun because it's a novel that is like almost entirely gossip and batshit crazy by the time you get to the ending of it. So if you don't know at this point, Nella Larson's Passing follows 2 characters, Claire and Irene, who are both Black women who have the ability to pass. Claire has decided to live her life as passing as a white woman, while Irene is very much a proud Black woman in the Harlem scene, gets a lot involved in a lot of things. They used to be friends when they were children, but when Claire's father dies, she moves away and Irene never sees her again. She hears rumors of what Claire's been up to, but she has never actually met the woman again. Well, some 25 years later, Irene is in Chicago and she ends up running back into Claire, and they slowly find themselves becoming obsessed with each other. And as Claire gets more and more involved in Irene's life, the tension between them only rises in some dramatic ways. I love this novel a lot. It's in my dissertation. It's one that I find so engaging and so interesting to reread. This is like my 4th or 5th time rereading this novel. I find new things every time I pick it up, and it's for a novel that's not even 200 pages. For me to continuously find new things, it's kind of amazing. This is definitely a classic I think you should read. Again, it's really easy. There's a Netflix film too that offers a pretty interesting perspective on this text. Definitely go pick it up, especially if you're wanting to get more into classics. One of the easiest classics to read, I think. Next, I have Bowing to Love by Saki Aida. So this is a Japanese light novel that follows 2 characters. Our main character, Lucianus, and Dominatus. So Lucianus, the blonde twink right here, is essentially this scholarly, like, noble. He really doesn't have any opinions about romance. He just kind of wants to sit and read. Well, one day he is getting harassed by these thugs in a alley, and Dominatus is the one to save him. And Lucianus quickly finds himself infatuated with Dominatus, who is a lead gladiator in the Colosseum. I'm not gonna lie to you guys, this book has no substance. This is all vibes, kind of insta-love. Definitely has like a whiny main character who is like damsel in distress all the time. But it was fun. It's nothing special. It is sort of kind of mindless, but I wasn't expecting anything amazing out of this. Really, what I wanted was sweet, tender moments between them, and that this book does deliver on that. I will say, Dominatus's backstory was really interesting, and I really, really liked like hearing his motivations and getting to learn more about his character. It's a little bit wasted because it's not in his perspective at all. We are only in Lucianus's perspective, and because he's very much a damsel in distress and sort of a passive character, we don't get too much of that, which is sad. It was cute. It was silly. If you cannot handle a damsel in distress, do not read this book. Like, I cannot stress that enough. This book will piss you off if you want a lead who is like powerful and like does literally anything. Not Lucianus. Really is just being carried away in this novel. And that was fine. It was fun. It's split into 2 parts, and it's a very, very quick read. It's not that long. I think it's sub 300 pages. It's sub 250 pages. I think I read the whole first part in like an hour. Roughly the same for the second part. So it's a very quick read. I gave it 3 stars. Again, nothing special, but I think a nice little palate cleanser if you could turn your brain off. Then I read Mistakenly Saving the Villain, Volume 2. This is the sequel to a Danmei I had read a couple months ago, I think in March. And I really, really liked it. The premise of this one is that we're following our main character, Zhang Qingxi, who is who's essentially isekai'd into this world as like a god of medicine. And he is given a directive to save the hero of this novel that he's kind of been dropped into. However, he kind of forgets who the main character is, and he ends up saving this other character who essentially is going to grow into the ultimate villain of this story. But because Zhang Qingxi has saved him, the villain has actually become very much endeared to our main character. It's a silly story. It's only, I think, gonna be only 3 volumes. So this is really where we see the buildup of like, where is this story going to go? It picks up pretty directly after where the first volume ends and adds a little bit more complications. The middle of this was kind of a little slow. It wasn't like the best thing to read, especially after exhausting myself on Danmei during that one vlog. Overall, I really liked it. I thought it was really fun. I thought it was sweet. I liked seeing the romance get to develop in this one a bit more. But I am very curious to see where this is going to go in that last volume, which comes out sometime this year. I don't know if it comes out next month. Sometimes these Danmeis like have weird release schedules, but I know it's coming out soon. So I'm very excited to finish this series out. I ended up giving this one 3 stars. We have 2 more books and I gotta finish up because I gotta go. The next book I read was Heavenly Bodies by Imani Iru. I'm so sorry. I should really look up these author names before I record these videos, but I won't. But there's the name. But it's Heavenly Bodies. This is the first book in... Oh, it is. It's a Heavenly Bodies series. Okay, so I think it's a trilogy, if I'm not mistaken. I think there's 3 books, and I think all 3 are out. But this is a book that Princess is obsessed with. And it made me want to pick this up because I've had it for a while now, and I've been really interested in reading this. But like Princess's obsession with it, I was like, all right, I gotta know. I gotta know what's on with this series. So essentially the premise of the series is that we're following Alara, who is the heir to the Night Kingdom, and she has this prophecy that has been foretold, I think, since she was born, that she is going to fall in love with a star and it is going to be their demise. However, and the stars are these like godlike figures that rule over the universe. Alara was unaware of this prophecy for a really long time in her life until she was an adult. And one day the star that she is supposed to fall in love with, who is the king of all the stars, comes down to her kingdom and essentially slaughters her whole family and sends Alara onto the run because he does not want to die because of a mere mortal. And so this story is following Alara as she ends up up running to the kingdom that is her ultimate enemy, the Sun Kingdom, and she becomes embroiled in that royal family as they try to figure out ways of how to take down this star. Overall, I'm very, very interested in this series, but I did have quite a few issues when I was reading this book, mainly because you know how fantasy usually has that like 50 to 100 page buildup where you're learning about this world, you're learning about the characters. That is directly missing from this story. Like, we just jump right in the middle of the action, and I feel like I'm not giving it enough time to get to know Alara, to like really care for her kingdom, because by the time we already meet her, she is almost in the Sun Kingdom. That made it really hard for me to connect on some of the more emotional levels as we're like learning more about her kingdom and her friends and like all the people she had lost. Like, I felt for her because she herself was a little sad, but like I had no connection. I feel like I needed that connection for these moments to hit as hard as they could have. But if I'm not mistaken, this is Amani's first book, so it's gonna have a little bit of hiccups here and there. But overall, I really like the world. I really like the magic and the mythos that we're dealing with in this, because by the time we get to the end of this book, we're learning a lot of really cool things. But because of those hiccups at the beginning, it took me a really long time to like sink into this book and to like have an emotional investment. And that just might be who I am as a reader. I'm not someone who minds those 50 to 100 pages to get the story going. I actually really like that because it really immerses me into the world. This one, I was looking for that investment almost from the entire thing. It wasn't until like we're reaching the last 25% that I felt like steady enough in my understanding and in my feeling for these characters to like really let the story like take off for me. I end up rating this 3 stars. I'm curious to continue with this series. I actually have the next one in these special editions pre-ordered, so I can have that as soon as it comes out, because I would like to collect them in these editions because I would like them to match. I'm not like obsessed with this story just yet. Maybe that will change in book 2 now that I have this to kind of like establish myself, but we will have to see. All right, and the very last book I have for you today is Glow by Raven Kennedy. This is the 4th book in the Plated Prisoner series, and at the start of the second half of the series, because the major plot line sort of wraps up in book 3, and we are getting like a new plot line in this book, which she's chunky, okay? She is so chunky. I can't explain to you what's going on in this book because that would be a spoiler. So the Plated Prisoner series follows our main character Orin, who is the prized possession of King Midas, because this is a King Midas retelling in which Orin is our gold touch woman. Again, really favored by King Midas. However, he keeps her in a cage locked away as his special prize. Well, one day she is actually kidnapped by slavers and is saved by an enemy kingdom's general. And on her way back to being delivered to King Midas, she is learning more about this world that she's never actually got a chance to go out and explore. And in that, she's learning a lot more things about herself and revealing some secrets that people would kill to keep hidden. This was a series that I had picked up on a whim. People had been talking about it forever when it came out. It's one of those like romantic-y, smut-heavy series. Like, the first book starts with an orgy. Like, it's really a lot of smut going on. And I picked it up just for shits and giggles. But when I tell you, I binged the first 3 books so fast. I was obsessed. I was like destroying them in like a day or 2. And I had taken a little bit of a break to like catch up on some other series and read some other things. But I was feeling that itch to go back and just like to have a mindless read. And so I picked up this series again. And I have to say, there's a lot in this book that I feel like we didn't necessarily need. It does a lot of that setting up, which makes sense because of what it has to set up in order for the rest of the series to continue, because there's 2 other books that follow it. It has a lot of like seemingly meandering moments, but I don't think it detracted from the book as a whole. I still really enjoyed it. I still flew through this thing, and again, she's chunky. She's like almost 800 pages chunky, and I read this pretty quickly. Like, in that every time I picked this book up, I was reading 200 to almost 300 pages each time. It's just a book that just flies through. I like the relationship between Orin and her love interest. I really like the plot and getting to see Orin grow a lot more in this book, and to take the lessons and the things that have happened in the first half of the series and really develop them into who Orin is. I feel like this is the best characterization we got of Oren to date. Did it take 4 books to get here? Yes, but I feel like now Raven Kennedy's like really figured out who is this character that I'm creating and who's driving the story forward, and that was a lot of fun to see, and it made me really invested in like seeing how much further she can grow. So I have since picked up the next book in this series, and I'm almost halfway through that. Your girl is excited to see where it's going to go. I ended up giving this one 3.5 stars only because I do think that we could have taken out a chunk of this book, especially because we're switching perspectives, and there's a few perspectives I was like, I don't care. I could care less that I am reading someone else's perspective. Get me back to where I want to go. But that's a me thing. I don't like multi-POV stories very much. They often drive me pretty kooky, and this was no exception. I did not care. I would love to just stick to our main 2. Or Slade's perspective in this, so good. I love getting to learn more about him and his backstory and the implications that has to what happens at the end of this book. I'm excited. I will be finishing this series soon, so you can keep your eyes out for that when I talk about it. That is the last book I read in May. So we can now take a look at, oh gosh, not the camera so much. We can see the haul for the month. I did pretty good. Again, I read a total of 9 books, not all of which are represented here because some of them were audiobooks, but overall a pretty good reading month. But that's gonna go ahead and be it for me. Your girl has to hit the road, so she needs to go and do that. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video. What did you read this month? Did you read anything fun and exciting? Did you finish some series? Are you getting closer in some? Let me know in the comments down below. But otherwise, I will see you guys in the next video. Bye!